Good afternoon, students. So we're now in week 9, and so this week you're going to do your week 9 forum where you're going to do your persuasive essay post, and then week 10 you're also going to do the persuasive essay post. So this week you could have your 3 paragraphs to do, and then for next week, week 10, you could write the 5-paragraph essay, persuasive essay. So this week you're going to write an introduction, 1 body paragraph, and then a conclusion. And then next week you'll write your 1 introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. And you can choose your topics from the procon.org website. So without further ado, here is this week's assignment, this week's lecture. I'm going to go through this very, very fast, and then I will send you this PowerPoint. I will send you this PowerPoint after this is over. Let me do this. So I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. So you're going to write a week 9 essay, and you're going to write a week 9 persuasive essay. So when do we use APA? We use APA whenever we use numbers, historical facts, financial facts, or uncommon knowledge. You're going to make sure you have at least 3 paragraphs. Make sure each in-text citation is less than 3 lines. So whenever you have in-text citations with percentages like 51%, 79%, 17%, you have to cite the source in order to give the researcher credit. So here you have more percentages. 81% of teenagers are on social media, and then you have to state the author, the date, and the number. So anytime you use any kind of numbers, like 20 minutes, stating time, stating dates, percentages, you have to cite the source. If you're citing medical facts, alcohol releases endorphins, you have to cite the source. If you're stating historical facts, freedom of speech has given voice to those looked down upon by society, you have to cite the source. If you're citing any kind of financial information, $8.80, you've got to cite the source to give the researcher credit for doing the research. Legal information. Did you know it's legal to carry, in all 50 states, to carry a concealed handgun? So you need APA for that. Use APA for dates. In 2018, a man opened fire at a back-to-school event. So you have to, and when you write an abbreviation the first time, you have to write it out. Here, if you're writing more medical information, obesity is in most cases preventable, you have to cite the source. Do not overwhelm the reader with too many statistics. Use only 1 statistic at a time. This is also too many statistics at the same time, and so that's way too long. This student made a mistake because all she wrote was a bunch of web addresses. This is wrong. You want to have the author name, first name, date, article name, journal name, and the date you retrieved it, not just simply the web address. This is also wrong. So you give full reference citations at the end of your week 9 post. If anybody talks about some topic that's opposite to the way you think, just agree to disagree and respect other students' rights to have an opinion. And so this week we're just going to learn how to write persuasively. For if we can write persuasively, we can get our way in the world. And so we agree to disagree. So when do we use, and also in week 10, you'll also be working on your persuasive essay. You rewrite the 3-paragraph essay draft you wrote for week 9, taking into account the peer-reviewed comments and the teacher feedback in the week 10 forum. And you also add in 2 more paragraphs for week 10. And so getting your way. So after learning how to persuade people using ethos, pathos, logos, I will now teach you how to make an effective argument, avoid fallacies, gather credible evidence, and I will introduce you to 3 kinds of persuasive essays. And so persuasive writing is everywhere, from billboards to movies to TV ads, all the advertisements that you see all around you are all trying to persuade you to buy something. And so sometimes we use argumentative or persuasive writing in order to write for social justice. Sometimes nurses will do advocacy writing to persuade people their point of view on medical issues. And so persuasive writing is when we want to convince the reader of our point of view. So we're going to be in this PowerPoint, we're going to go over how to write a good argumentative essay, how to engage the other side, ethos, pathos, logos, and then the 3 kinds of persuasive essay: position paper, call to action paper, problem solution paper. So there are different kinds of claims in good argumentation. And so how do you build persuasive arguments? You have to identify your audience and purpose, generate ideas and gather solid evidence, develop a line of reasoning, draw reasonable conclusions from your research, support each claim with solid evidence to avoid fallacies, make concessions, and develop rebuttals. This means that your essay should be about one central idea. An argument is a chain of reasons used to support a claim. And therefore, you have your thesis statement needs to be debatable. That is something that the reader can agree or disagree upon. And also, you have many different kinds of claims. You have a claim of fact. The Lord of the Rings was written by Tolkien. You have opinion. The Lord of the Rings was my favorite movie series of all time. So you need to be able to distinguish claims from opinions. So a claim of truth means that something is always true, and that states that something is or is not the case. A claim of value states that something does or does not have worth. A claim of policy states that something ought to be done. And so a claim of truth, the Arctic ice cap will begin to disappear by 2015. So claim of truth states that something is or is not the truth. A claim of value puts value and standards to something. Volunteer tutoring provides a valuable service to at-risk youth. So those are claims of value. Now for your essay, you're going to be mainly dealing with claims of policy because you're going to be getting your topics from the procon.org website. So claims of policy states that something ought to or ought not to be done. Special taxes should be placed on gas-guzzling SUVs. Avoid all or nothing extreme claims. So avoid using words like all, or nothing. So all or nothing claims result in fallacies and stereotypes. Avoid unclear, fuzzy language. Avoid ambiguity. Make sure that your information relates back to your thesis. Avoid using slanted language. Avoid slang, text language, and always have a professional tone and use third-person case. And when we want to have a good argument, you have to have ethos, which means that you base your article on experts, pathos, in which you make the article interesting by giving the reader feelings for the article, and then logos means that it's logical. So you have to have ethos, pathos, and logos to have a good argument. And so how do we write a good argument? Well, when we make a claim, we have to back up our claim with credible evidence. Credible evidence means that we use peer-reviewed articles from the online library. We avoid using Wikipedia. We use statistics, graphics, and analogies, expert testimony, and predictions for credible evidence. We make sure that our evidence is accurate, complete, and concrete. We do not drown our reader with too many quotes. We use one quote per paragraph. And so here are different kinds of credible evidence: observations, statistics, analogies, tests and experiments, expert testimony, case studies, and analysis. And so how do we gather credible evidence? Well, if you don't have credible evidence, then your claim becomes rumors, fallacies, and propaganda. So an example of a rumor would be, did you know Linda, who is married, is dating the math teacher who is married to someone else? So if you make claims without proof, then you are spouting out nonsense. You're spouting out fake news. You're spouting out rumors, fallacies, and propaganda. You want to avoid having rumors, fallacies, and propaganda in your academic paper, because that would ruin your credibility and your reputation. So examples of nonsense is humans are all descended from Mars. What's the proof? So you always have to back up your claim with credible evidence and credible proof in order for your paper to be believable. So claims without credible evidence become fallacies. And so when you want to avoid illogical arguments or fallacies, in other words, you want to avoid having fake news bias in your paper. So if I say something like, we are all Martians, and I make these claims with no credible evidence, I could be laughed out of court. And so there are many kinds of illogical arguments, fallacies of relevance, fallacies of ambiguity, and fallacies of overgeneralization. So we want to avoid having fallacies in our paper. That simply means that you make a claim based on false evidence. Most TV ads are fallacies of relevance because they make a claim and they have no evidence to back it up. So if you say 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Dentyne, well, which dentists? Who are these dentists? Where is the evidence to this claim? And so TV ads lack evidence on purpose because they simply want you to buy their product. So that's all TV ads are examples of fallacies of relevance. Fallacy of ambiguity means that whatever you make a claim and it's not very clear. Well, TV ads do the same thing. When they say that Dove soap is the best soap out of what? Out of 5, out of 10, out of 100 soaps? In other words, you're comparing it to nothingness. So therefore, you have a fallacy of ambiguity. They do that on purpose in order to manipulate you to buy their product. Fallacies of overgeneralization is sometimes called it's also called the hasty generalization fallacy. That's when we make stereotypes based on other people. So if I say all Chinese people are good at math, okay, where is your proof? So whenever you make some kind of claim with no evidence, you're creating a fallacy. So when you write your papers, you want to avoid fallacies. Cherry-picking fallacies means that you only present one side of an issue. So on Fox News, if you go to foxnews.com, they're very, very pro-Trump. Everything is Trump could do no wrong, and Biden is old and incompetent. So that is very cherry-picking because you're only biased towards one side, the Republicans. Then if you go to CNN or MSNBC, they think that Trump is terrible, Biden can do no good. Biden can do no wrong, so they're all for the Democrats. So whenever you take one side of an issue, that means that you have bias. So media bias on all the TV channels, all the networks, is very prevalent. So if you want to get an unbiased source that's trustworthy, you want to go to allsides.com. So I will go over more about media bias next week. So what is a fallacy? We want to avoid fallacies because those are illogical arguments, and we don't want to have illogical arguments in our paper. What is a fallacy of relevance? A fallacy of relevance is if I were to say that I'm from Mars and that all people are from Mars. That means that I make a claim with no evidence. Fallacy of ambiguity, so basically it's spouting nonsense, because as soon as you make a claim and you have no evidence, you have nonsense. And so all the TV ads, you don't believe in them because they are all fallacies. And you want to avoid fallacies in your paper. You want your paper to be fair and balanced. And how do we have a fair and balanced persuasive essay? We engage the opposition. That means that we talk about the other side. So let's say that I am against abortion, okay? So that my argument is that abortion is immoral. It's not good. Then the other side would be abortion is moral, okay? So then you want to engage with so you talk about what the other side says. You would say abortion, some people believe abortion is okay because the woman has a choice to do whatever she wants with her body. It's her right. And then that's called a counter-argument paragraph, when you state and engage the opposition, the other side. Then you would say, however, abortion is immoral because God created life, or something like that. So when you suddenly turn over to your argument, that's known as a rebuttal. Then you rebut the other side. So this makes your paper look engaged and fair and balanced. And it also strengthens your argument. There are many ways in which you can engage the other side. You can do Toulmin, where you just simply state the other side and then you state your side. And so here you can write a counter argument paragraph where you talk about the other side and then you rebut the other side. And Toulmin is used a lot in presidential debates, where, for example, President Clinton will say, I am for DACA and I will provide a path of citizenship for immigrants. And then you have the other side, which is Trump, who will say, I will not have any kind of path to citizenship for immigrants. They will have work visas, and when they're done with their work, they go back to their countries. So here you have two different sides. And so when you have one side and then the other side, that is known as Toulmin, is when you have two different distinct sides, the counter-argument and then the rebuttal. In the Rogerian kind of argumentation, you concede to the other side. You actually say, well, I think some of the other side is right. However, what I think is right. So you concede a little bit to the other side, and then you say that your side is right. So that Rogerian style of argumentation is used to be given when the loser of an election concedes to the other side. So a common ground argumentation is when you find common ground between two sides. And this kind of argumentation is used in diplomacy when two countries have to find common ground to write a treaty or to have a ceasefire. And two sides make compromises that both sides can live with based on common ground. And so Toulmin, when you engage in a Toulmin argument, you simply state the other side, then you rebut the other side. Toulmin argumentation is also known as classic or classical argumentation. And so Toulmin is used in presidential debates and in criminal trials. And then Rogerian, where you concede to the other side, is used in diplomacy, delicate or explosive situations that need diffusion, or if you're undergoing marriage therapy, where both sides have to find common ground to forgive each other, to continue the marriage. And so when you engage, when you do Rogerian, you make concessions to the other side by admitting that certain aspects of the other side is correct. So by making concessions, you recognize points scored by the other side. You strengthen your argument by being able to later rebut the other side. So when you concede and rebut the other side, your argument becomes more credible. So you would say, granted, abortion, women should be able to do whatever they want with their body, making abortion moral. And then I cannot argue with the fact that women should be able to do whatever they want with their body. So all of these words, admittedly, it is true that, of course, granted, I concede that, I agree, no doubt. All of these are words, sentence starters that you use when you concede to the other side. So here's some more examples of the turnabout introduction paragraph, where you write about the other side and then you turn it around and write your thesis. So granted, smoking may look glamorous, and then you write your thesis statement. However, smoking is dangerous to your health. Admittedly, smoking may look glamorous and mature. However, smoking is actually dangerous to your health. So even when you concede a point, you can often answer the objection by rebutting it. A good rebuttal is a small tactical argument aimed at a weak spot in the opposing argument. Point out the counter-argument limits. Tell the other side of the story. Address logical fallacies in the counter-argument. Examples of rebuttals or, Toulmin argumentation. So here, when you want to write your counter-argument, you want to write about what the other side thinks, you would say, many believe that abortion is moral if a mother's life is in danger, or if the mother is carrying the child of the rapist. And then you rebut to your argument. However, I believe abortion is immoral because abortion is a sin against God, since each baby, each fetus, each new life is a gift from heaven and from God. And then in the early Obama speeches, Barack Obama used a lot of Rogerian speeches. He said, I agree with the Republicans that as Americans, we all want a united country. We all want liberty and independence. We want equality for all. And now he pivots, okay? So as soon as you pivot, however, I want more, then he's rebutting that what the Republicans want is not enough, that he, the Democrat, is going to do more for the government, for the country, than the Republicans. Therefore, you want to vote for Obama. So early Obama speeches in 2008 all tend to be hopeful and kind of, I wouldn't say naive, compared to Obama's later speeches where he does more, he's more confrontational, more combative, and more toolman. Because when you use toolman, you just go straight on and you attack the other side. This one, you concede, you're a lot more polite, and you concede to the other side. Yes, the Republicans are right a little bit. However, as the Democrat, I think blah, 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 blah. So that's what you have when you have Rogerian, you're being polite to the other side. But when you have a counter argument, like when you have a toolman, that's when it's just totally one side, then the other side. And so most of the time, some people say that using lectures in class is, so I believe that having lectures like this is very dynamic and very interactive. So that's my argument, is that class lectures are dynamic. But the other side would think that having class lectures is boring and monotonous. And so that's when you talk about the other side. So this whole thing, some people say that using lectures in class is boring. Having only the teacher speak for hours on end is not really interesting and lowers student attention. Teacher lectures are seen as an outmoded, teacher-centered form of education. So this is the counter-argument paragraph. Then I come in with my rebuttal paragraph. I disagree with the claims that lectures are outmoded and boring. On the contrary, according to the book Dynamic Lectures, teaching by lecture is a vital part of your teaching handbook because lectures provide foundational knowledge for students on an unfamiliar topic. Students gain mastery of the topic faster when a teacher lectures, and also lectures provide a faster way for teachers to teach the content of the class. After all, there are many ways to give a dynamic lecture through humor, multimedia, and having an animated, passionate discussion. And so we use Toulmin and Rogerian in all kinds of essays. Even in your comparison contrast essay, you can stick in a Toulmin or Rogerian counter-argument and rebuttal to strengthen your argument that adulthood is better than childhood, or the other way around. So if we know how to engage the other side, our papers become more credible, fair, and balanced, and we avoid being one-sided and biased. And so when we have a good argument, we have ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos means that expert testimony. Pathos means that we get our audience to feel emotion. And then logos means we get our audience to think. So if we can get our audience to trust us, ethos, get our audience to feel for our topic, pathos, get our audience to think, logos, then ethos, pathos, logos, if you have all three of them, these three are all the pillars of persuasive argument. And you have to have all three of them in your paper to have a good argument. Otherwise, if you're missing one, then you end up with a fallacy. And so here's some more. Ethos, ethics, establishing personal credentials, getting your audience to trust you. Pathos, pity, inspiring an emotional response, getting your audience to feel. Logic, arguing based on reasons and facts, getting your audience to think. So you want your audience to do all of that in order to have a really good argumentation. So if you have ethos, pathos, logos, you can get your way, okay? And you can get whatever you want, all right? So you got to make sure that you have all three of them. Now we're going to go over the three kinds of persuasive essays. The first kind of persuasive essay means you just take a position on your issue. Most position papers aim to educate and inform the reader. and persuade the reader to their side of the issue. The topics addressed in position papers are debatable issues. Your argument must be informative, logical, and engaging. So in your thesis statement, you have to take a side. Are you for or against whatever your topic is? Here are some examples of climate change is not a hoax. Abortion is immoral. Gun control is unnecessary. So in all of these, I take a firm stand on what I think. When we elect someone for president, we vote for that person based on how these people stand on the issues. How does Clinton think of, what does Clinton think about immigration or the economy? What does Trump think about the economy? And so when you take a stand on an issue, this is known as a position paper or white paper. And each presidential candidate puts all of their position papers on their official website. And so when you want to elect someone, you elect them based on their stance on the issues, not on loyalty to a certain person, because then that becomes a cult. And so here, the Biden-Harris administration, on their website, this was their position paper. This was in early 2020 when President Biden was first elected. So then at that time, there was a lot of the pandemic. So here was President Biden's next step on his website. President Biden will deliver bold action and immediate relief for American families as the country grapples with converging crises. This will include efforts to control COVID, provide economic relief, tackle climate change, advance racial equity and civil rights, as well as actions to reform our immigration system and restore America's standing in the world. So that's Biden 2020. President Trump said that over the past 4 years, my administration delivered for Americans of all backgrounds like never before. Save America is about building on those accomplishments, supporting the brave conservatives who will define the future of the America First movement. So here, President Trump talks about his stance on everything. So this comes from Trump 2022. So that is known as a position paper, where you take a position on a paper. And so for your week 9 and 10 forums, for the most part, you're just going to be writing a position paper. The second kind of persuasive essay is a call to action paper. A call to action paper is when you convince the reader of your point of view so much that you get the reader to care so much about your topic that the reader will go off and do something about it, like go do a protest. And so the call to action persuasive writing occurs in newsletters, editorials, marketing, business proposals, academic journals, white papers, and traditional essays. Writers call for action because they believe change is necessary to fix a problem or correct an injustice. The writer's goal is to get the reader to care so much about this topic that they will act on it to fix the issue. And for me, the best call to action persuasive essay was Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream. In this speech, Martin Luther King talks about what it's like to undergo and overcome racism. So he writes with a lot of ethos because he is an authority on the topic. He has a PhD and he's African American, and he knows what it's like to undergo. So he has ethos, he has authority over it. So that makes the audience trust him. So that's ethos. He's got pathos because he writes with such urgency, and he uses alliteration and repeats, and he writes with such beautiful poetic urgency. So that's pathos. He gets the reader to feel. Then thinking. He sticks to one central idea of his dream that one day his children will not be judged by their skin color, but will be judged by their character. So he sticks to one main idea, and then he gets people to become aware of the injustices of racism, and then that's when the civil rights movement occurred and people protested. So that's when you convince the reader to care about your topic so much that that's what's called a call to action persuasive essay. And the last kind of persuasive essay is a problem solution example paper. So here in the problem solution paper, in this kind of persuasive essay, first you write down what the problem is, and then you propose a solution to the problem. Proposals are prescriptions for change. As such, they challenge the reader not just to care about a problem or just act upon a problem, such as a call to action paper, but to actually solve the problem. Proposal writers argue for remedies in all areas of life, from academia to social justice issues. You may write proposals to justify expenditures, sell products, or troubleshoot problems. So when you write a problem solution paper, the first part of the paper you state the problem, second part of the paper you state the solution. And so here is an example of a problem solution paper. So in the problem is Americans are getting too fat because Americans eat too much junk food and do not exercise. And then the solution is that people need to eat more vegetables, not eat junk food, and exercise. And that way they can prevent heart disease and increase their life. So here you have the first part is a solution, and then you have the first part is the problem of obesity, and then the second part is the solution. Okay, this is the solution where everyone has to have a diet, have physical activity to increase life expectancy and have better fitness. So that is a problem solution paper. And then the governments should also implement initiatives to improve everyone's eating. This could be done through education by adding classes to the curriculum about healthy diet and lifestyles. Governments could also do more to encourage their citizens to walk or cycle instead of taking the car, for instance, by building more cycle lanes or increasing vehicle taxes. And then these are different ways in which you can write your problem solution paper. And that's it. Okay, so here is an example of a person's should students have to wear school uniforms. So this is an example of a student's, and she wrote about 4 paragraphs. She has a good introduction where she says that school uniforms enhance school pride and unity, reduce peer pressure, and keep students focused on their education. Then she writes, firstly, uniforms enhance school unity. So that's part of the 3, so that the 3 reasons of her thesis statements become her 3 body paragraphs. And then she says that secondly, uniforms can reduce peer pressure. Third, wearing a uniform can keep students focused on their education. In conclusion, wearing uniforms creates a sense of pride for the institution the students attend. And then you repeat your thesis statement as the first sentence, and then you summarize the rest of your conclusion. And you got to make sure that when you write your reference citations, you don't just write a bunch of web addresses. You have to remember to have the author name, the date, the article name, and then the publication name, and then the date you retrieved your website. So not just the web address. Signal phrases. So signal phrases signals to the reader that you're about to start an in-text citation. So as I started this presentation, we use in-text citations in the middle of our paper whenever we have financial, medical, historical, numerical information to give the researcher credit. And then you could have Dr. Smith, you have the author and the date. So here you could have the author here and then the date back here, or you could have the author and the date next to each other. So you have 3 ways of writing an in-text citation, which goes inside the body of your post, and then your references goes at the end of your post. And if it's a paper, it's after the last page of your paper. And so here you have the author name, the date, the article name, the website name or journal name, date you retrieved it, and then you write your web address. So that goes, it has to be in alphabetical order. And that's it. That's the end of this. So in conclusion, having the skill to persuade people allows you to be successful at work, in your personal life, and also to help society. So that's it for this particular, I did it really, really fast. And so I hope that you enjoyed this presentation on what is a persuasive essay. And if you have any kind of questions, feel free to email me anytime.